I'm afraid because as it is, my Social Security is very minimal. I'm afraid that I won't be able to afford those so-called lower grocery prices that he promised. I'm afraid for others. I am afraid for the children. I am afraid for seniors who are older than me. He's the president. He's supposed to be in it for the good of the people, not for him and his oligarchs.
Hi there, everyone. It's now 5 o'clock in New York. It is a rather devastating indictment and snapshot of life in Donald Trump's America as the government shutdown and Donald Trump's policies put additional financial pressure on Americans already stretched too thin. And for those who voted for Trump, promised lower costing groceries, among other things. The USDA has announced that come Saturday, the 42 million Americans who rely on the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, it's often referred to as SNAP, will be forced to go without benefits that'll run out. Trump's USDA writes in a statement this, quote, "The well has run dry." It comes after Trump cut approximately $500 million in aid for food banks earlier this year, and is not the only way that life is about to get a lot more difficult for a lot more Americans. The government shutdown and Americans out of work over the Republicans' refusal to extend Obamacare subsidies. The Washington Post is reporting that people are going to see their premiums go up 30%. The Post writes this, quote, "The higher premiums, along with the likely expiration of pandemic-era subsidies, mean millions of people will see their health insurance payments double or even triple in 2026. And if that isn't enough already, these additional financial pressures come as the New York Times reports that almost everything is about to get more expensive as companies finally start passing along the costs of Donald Trump's tariffs to the American consumer. Amid the growing hunger and affordability crisis in America, blue state governors are expressing outrage over Donald Trump's lack of action.
We are fast-tracking an $80 million investment. We're front-loading it to get them to food banks. I'm very worried about 5 million people in a matter of days losing food stamp, losing their SNAP benefits, and entering in a grocery store with Donald Trump's tariffs and inflation.
They're paying contractors to tear down the East Wing, but they're not putting money into the food bank that they're setting on. So if there's a sense of frustration in America, it's very real. They are choosing not to fund these programs. They are choosing to prioritize. And when the White House press secretary said the top priority is the ballroom, we could not disagree more. Our top priority is the well-being of the Minnesotans, especially around food security.
To Governor Walz's point about priorities, that $300 million that Donald Trump is spending on making a gold ballroom where the East Wing once stood, and the $230 million he's trying to get us, the American taxpayers, to reimburse him for being under criminal investigation, they add up to roughly the same amount of money he has cut from America's food banks. It's where we start the hour. Some of our favorite experts and friends. David Frum is back. He's a staff writer at The Atlantic, host of the video podcast, The David Frum Show. Also joining us, MSNBC political analyst, host of the Bulwark podcast, Tim Miller's here. And joining me at the table, Princeton University professor, MSNBC political analyst, Eddie Glaude. Eddie, it's a deeply disturbing portrait of America right now. The images of Donald Trump destroying with an actual wrecking ball, the actual East Wing of the White House, while Americans are about to go without food stamps, is a snapshot of America that'll live forever. Mm-hmm. It is awful when anyone in America goes hungry, and it is a choice. It's Donald Trump's choice. Do you think that we are at a fever snapping moment, or do you see this moment on a continuum?
It varies. I think, first of all, you're absolutely right that it's a choice. Some days I see it as a kind of inflection point. Other days I see it as a continuum. We've always talked about this tension within the Trump kind of coalition between the Elon Musk wing and the Steve Bannon wing. Mm-hmm. And when he was having his little tiff with Musk, we were like, who's going to win out? But this is the Bannon side. This is the populist side. The fact that people who are going to have difficulty putting food on the table, folk who have the view that billionaires have overtaken or overrun the government, they are going to see Trump in relation to that kind of complaint, as it seems to me. So I think this is an inflection point within his coalition. But we have made the choice consistently to be the richest country in the history of the world to have some of our citizens not eat.
Tim, we were just talking about Steve Bannon with John Karl, who has a great new book out. And there's an anecdote about his influence ahead of the meeting with Zelensky. But I think if you look at the policy debacle, his influence is nowhere to be seen in the flagrant extravagance of the crypto corruption, the flagrant extravagance of the gold-leafed Oval Office, the flagrant extravagance of a Russian-style ballroom, the herding, he used to call them the MAGAs, the MAGAs who are on Medicaid, I think he's talked about on his podcast. I mean, he's going about 04-10 if you look at all the policies that'll hurt the parts of the coalition he used to publicly speak out for. Who is disinterested? Or I guess, is this all Donald Trump? I mean, what is your theory about how we got to this point right now?
My theory about how we got to this point right now is that Donald Trump is responsive to anybody that will suck up to him. And in the second term, the richest, most powerful people in the country have decided that they're going to suck up to him in the way that they didn't the first time. And so you can see this in foreign policy or in domestic policy. And so when you have Bannon, for all of my complaints about him, or of anybody's complaints about him, like he was the one who was saying this year during the tax bill that they should include a tax on the tax increase on the richest Americans. He was advocating for that publicly and privately, as best I can tell. They didn't do that. The MAGA movement, I'll add one element to your list, was talking in 2016 about draining the swamp and going after these special interests in D.C. That was a lot of that was always smoke and mirrors, but it's particularly so this time. When you look at this ballroom, who is funding it? It's the most entrenched interests in Washington. It's the military-industrial complex. It's the big tech CEOs, right? It's the big companies. All of these companies that were not going to donate to Donald Trump after January 6th, not going to donate to any Republicans after January 6th, have now all bent the knee. And what is revealed is that Donald Trump wasn't actually interested in fighting the status quo, wasn't actually interested in fighting for the forgotten man. What he was interested in was like respect for himself. It was a Rodney Dangerfield thing. And now that all the richest people in the world have said, okay, yes, sir, Mr. President, sir, I'm going to bring you this trophy like Tim Cook did, he no longer is interested in fighting them. And so, I do think that's a real obviously change away from kind of the pure id of what we saw from MAGA in 2016.
David, from food insecurity it's a weird thing. It's wrapped up in probably the only crisis maybe a person could endure with more shame interbreeded or interconnected is some sort of domestic abuse. But food insecurity is people with cars and jobs who can't afford food for their families. And so they show up at food banks. Sometimes if shame is a hurdle, a food bank will open early or late to let a family come in and shop off the shelves. Food banks are a bridge sometimes to keep families through job insecurity, maybe not someone totally out of work, but not with steady jobs. Sometimes military families show up at food banks, especially when their salaries don't come through. Food insecurity in America is a lot more common than anybody can imagine, and it knows no party affiliation. It does not care who you voted for. And the fact that Trump and all the Republicans in Congress are opting into this tragedy, this sort of shameful thing in America in 2025 should be front page news all over the place. What is your sense of the degree of numbness in our country right now?
I don't think Americans are numb. There's a hostage taking going on, and the hostages certainly pay attention to it. I'm speaking to you from Toronto. I flew here via Dulles Airport. On my way out of Dulles Airport, I got into conversation with the person who was checking the computer and shampoo in my carry-on bag, and he talked to me about his feeling, about his fear that his salary would be stopped and that he and his family would be under pressure. Now, I assume we're paying much more than living wage to that kind of skilled worker, but he's worried. Everyone's worried. The tens of millions of people are worried. And here's why the worries will only intensify. In the 30 years since in the past 30 plus years, there have been major shutdowns in 1994, 2013, one over the winter of 2018, 2019, and now this one. This is now the second longest, on its way to being probably in the end the longest. In all those previous cases, the shutdowns were about many, many different issues they were tests of strength. Who's more popular? They often happen quite close to a recent election. And there's a test of strength, who's got the upper hand. But there's always kind of an exit ramp. So in 1994, when Newt Gingrich and Bill Clinton faced off, the exit ramp was Medicare. Basically, the Republicans climbed down, Bill Clinton got a win, exit ramp. In 2018, 2019, the exit ramp was Donald Trump's demand for a border wall, $5 billion for a border wall. He eventually dropped that demand, exit ramp. Where's the exit ramp now? Yes, this fight is about the subsidies for the Affordable Care Act, but there's a bigger problem, which is what this fight really, I think, is about is the Constitution awards Congress power over taxing and spending. And Donald Trump has challenged that power in a very fundamental way. He is taxing without Congress, $30+ billion a month in tariff revenue, and he is spending without Congress. Mm-hmm. He is getting other forms of revenue than taxes. The reason the White House ballroom story is so important, it's not just the vandalism of an historical monument. It's not just the gaudy bad taste of this ballroom. It's that it is being funded not by taxes, but by gifts from people who have business before the government. So he's bypassing Congress as a source of revenue, and he's bypassing Congress's control of spending, and he's claiming the authority to refuse to spend money that Congress has appropriated and that he signed. So how do you do business with someone like that who says, okay, we need to make a deal, but I just want you to understand before we sit down to this deal, whatever deal we agree, it doesn't bind me, it only binds you. How do you do business with that person?
Tonight, new details on Trump's brazen desecration of the People's House, the White House. The Wall Street Journal reporting that he fast-tracked the demolition of the East Wing by firing 3 Biden-appointed members of a 12-person planning committee. Quote, installing his own panel of loyalists, including senior White House officials, giving Republicans control of a little-known body with outsized influence over the White House complex. Now, that happened way back in July, around the time Trump falsely promised that the historic East Wing wouldn't come down.
With the current building, it'll be near it, but not touching it, and pays total respect to the existing building, which I'm the biggest fan of. It's my favorite place. I love it. We determined that after really a tremendous amount of study with some of the best architects in the world, we determined that really knocking it down, trying to use a little section, the East Wing was not much. In order to do it properly, we had to take down the existing structure.
Trump's $300 million construction project has become his obsession. Journal reporting, quote, he is involved with every aspect of planning. Companies have brought product samples to the Oval Office for Trump to review, and he has kept materials in the dining room off the Oval as he weighs design choices. It's clear Trump sees the White House as his personal property and not the People's House that we pay for with our taxes. Democrats have been slamming Trump for this over the weekend.
They're literally not just taking a wrecking ball to the White House, they're taking a wrecking ball to our very values.
That house doesn't belong to him, New York. It belongs to us. It belongs to the people of this country.
What the oligarchs fear, what they fear is the people will start understanding that this country belongs to us, not them.
Trump's authoritarianism goes hand in hand with greed and selling the U.S. presidency to the highest bidder. This weekend, hosting the ruler of Qatar on Air Force One, a man who gifted Trump that controversial new plane, as Trump commits to building a $5.5 billion golf course in Qatar. This just days after Trump accepted a legally dubious $130 million gift from a reclusive American billionaire and Trump backer. Trump claims this money will be used to pay troops during his government shutdown, but as the New York Times points out, it would only come out to about $100 per service member. Joining me now is Ambassador Norm Eisen, co-founder of The Contrarian on Substack. He was the top ethics lawyer for Barack Obama, founder and executive chair of Democracy Defenders Fund, and also co-founded CREW, Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington. Norm, thank you so much for joining us this evening. I want to start with this $130 million to the military. When I first heard that story, first off, it seems so bizarre to me because it's not a private army. I don't ever remember seeing service members out washing cars in the driveway to raise funds. So I don't know how someone can give that kind of money. Don't just tell us the ethical implications of this, but how is this money going to be used? Can it just be thrown in with our tax money? Like, what is the background of this and how could it actually be distributed?
Jason, I never would have allowed a private individual to pay the salaries of military members, because whenever people write checks, large ones, like for $130 million, that comes with strings attached. And Donald Trump has put the government up for sale to the high bidder. And that idea, another reason I wouldn't have allowed it when I was giving ethics advice in the White House, was because the law has standards that are breached by this payment. If the military cannot be paid by Congress, you can't do an end around, and the law says so. No end arounds to have a private individual pay. Moreover, the Pentagon is using its gift authority, but you can only use the statutory gift authority for proper purposes. Like with that gold-plated jet, where we at Democracy Defenders Fund objected, and we filed a complaint with the Office of Inspector General. This huge payment is not in America's best interest, besides which it's not enough to pay the service members.
That's what sort of hit me about this. And I want to show you this list right now. Bernie Sanders put up a tweet recently on corporate tax breaks and the ballroom donations. So we're already talking about the fact that some random person, again, who we don't necessarily know because it's a reclusive person, gave $130 million to the military. Now we see that Trump's big, beautiful bill gave to Google, gave Amazon a $16 billion tax break, Microsoft, Facebook, and lo and behold, now all of these corporations have given him money for this $300 million addition to the ballroom. What is going to be our obligation, or how can we track these companies going forward? Because they got a tax break, they're funding the new East Wing. How do we know they're not also just going to be getting deals in Congress, and how would we potentially stop that as a country?
Well, the American people are going to be the ultimate guardrail, Jason, because they elected Donald Trump on a promise to drain the swamp. He's flooding the swamp with corporate cash. And if you think these enormous subs, huge checks to the Pentagon to build the Golden Ballroom, to provide this gilt Air Force One, if you think those don't come with strings attached, you're not paying attention. Corporations view this as an investment. They want returns. They're getting those returns, and they're going to demand more. So for Donald Trump to scratch his itch, he wants that ballroom, he wants that plane, we run the risk of the American public interest being sold out. Now, there's a variety of other laws that are implicated at the Democracy Defenders Fund. We're litigating over 200 cases and matters. And I think you're going to see more litigation because these payments are illegitimate.
Breaking tonight, Democratic Senator Jackie Rosen is introducing a resolution to issue a formal Senate condemnation of Donald Trump for reportedly seeking $230 million from the Justice Department for the past investigations into him. Senator Rosen is aiming to bring up the resolution as a unanimous consent request as early as tomorrow. And Democratic Senator Jackie Rosen of Nevada joins us now.
It is so good to have you at the table. Thank you so much. So there are multiple outrageous pieces to this. The first outrageous piece is the request from the president to his own Department of Justice. The second potential outrageous piece is that if you talk to anyone who ordinarily brings this type of effort forward, they say DOJ never goes for this without a lawsuit being involved. They don't clear it. So if his own DOJ were to say, you know what, you're right, here's $230 million, thank you so much, that will be outrageous. And then if we were to somehow end up in the third step of this, where he was instead bringing a lawsuit against his own Department Department of Justice. That would be outrageous. So there really is no outcome here that feels all on the up and up.
Well, there's so many things wrong with this, but it's essentially, for the viewers at home, it is the fox guarding the hen house. Because here he is, it's his own DOJ. His feelings were hurt. So he's going to sue himself, and he's going to have the taxpayer, who he's fixed absolutely nothing for, he's going to have the taxpayer pay him almost $250 million because his feelings were hurt as president. So who does he decide to sue next week? What does he decide to do? So I put this resolution forward because I can tell you, whether it's this president or any others, no one should be suing and taking hard-earned taxpayer dollars to line their own pockets, number one. So who will stand up for this against the president? My Republican colleagues, you're about to find out tomorrow on unanimous consent. One Republican is on what they call the hotline now. One Republican can object. Let's see who they send to the firing line tomorrow and how they defend this. And I'm sure it's not the end of us talking about it. And I'll be damned if I can look at people when I go to the market and the price of everything is up. Donald Trump has just written himself a check. He laughs. Isn't this cute? It is not cute.
My feelings are hurt all the time, Michael.
Oh, mine stay hurt too. Particularly,
government's not writing you a check for $250 million for that.
But not only is the president asking for the government to pay him $230 million, and I appreciate the fact that you've put something on the table to kind of call the Republicans out on that, as well as the president. But then the other side of that coin is you have the president stripping bare, destroying, tearing down, whatever words you want to use, the East Wing, and building this monstrosity that is going to be bigger than the actual footprint of the White House itself, using private money. All right, supposedly private money. So where is the oversight here? Where's the emoluments clause? This president is seeking benefit directly for himself and at the same time getting side benefits from others. Because, I'm sorry, big corporations aren't writing a big check to Donald Trump just because they like the color of his hair or they like the size of his pants. What they're doing is they're writing that check for a reason.
That's right, because they want access.
And they want access.
This is a clear violation of the Hatch Act. It's one thing if you have a presidential library or other things where you raise into a fund for that. But first of all, this is the White House. He did not go through any review. He tore down the entire East Wing. He frankly lied to us. He lies to us every single day. The worst part of all of this is that my Republican colleagues, now we can say, we know that Speaker Johnson, well, he's no more Speaker Johnson because the president has declared himself President and Speaker of the House. Yes. Leader Thune not far behind. So I'm really tired of my colleagues in the Senate behind the scenes going, Lord, help us all. How can this happen? We don't like him either, whatever they say. Let them finally stand up for what is right and what is American. I walked today, into the Capitol. We go vote. You walk up the porte cochere, and above the transom, it's beautiful ironwork, and it says U.S. on it. Well, U.S. for United States, but for us, it is for us. All of this, whether it's health care, whether it's tariffs, lowering prices for everyday people, affordable housing. The White House is the people's house, not his house. The DOJ is the People's Department of Justice, not his personal law firm to do what he wants and then rob the American taxpayer. And so when we think of everything that Donald Trump does, he does it just for a party of one. It's for him, not for us. And I'm tired of my colleagues not standing up for what is right.
Can I do a quick follow-up on that? So will the donors who wrote the checks, companies that we know and brands that we're well aware of, will they be held accountable on the back end? Because this White House is not going to give it. But if you guys get access to that information, are there going to be public hearings and disclosures on who wrote checks, how much, and what they got for it?
I can tell you it is our job in the House and the Senate, in the Congress, to be sure that we do oversight. We see this administration firing inspector generals, tearing down anybody who could take a look at anything. You see them closing websites. You see them making blatant lies. You see them, I'll tell you this about SNAP that is about to expire. In September, USDA had a beautiful website up there. They said they were going to talk about how they could move money around. They could make sure that people who are food insecure in this country could continue to receive their benefits. That's all gone. Hidden. You know what's up there? some propaganda. And so we need to take back our Article 1 power. We need to stand up for all of us and be sure that people who are in charge in this country treat the American people with the respect that we all deserve and should expect.
Well, I mean, speaking of that Article 1 power, and you talked about the shutdown, I mean, Congress could end the shutdown today. Republicans could negotiate with Democrats to get the votes and reopen the government. This is what's happening in your home state of Nevada. These are some headlines. Nevada snapped to go without funding as government shutdown stretches on. From the Las Vegas Review-Journal, federal nuclear workforce in Nevada furloughed as funding runs out. And from the Las Vegas Sun, shutdown threats put already shaky Las Vegas tourism at risk. Given all of this, and we know we've heard from the American Federation of Government Employees, head of the union today, has that changed I mean, Senator Durbin was out there saying, we're going to have to talk about this. I'm not changing my vote at this time, but he was on the Hill saying, this does change things. What say you? Because the bill that the Republicans keep asking y'all to vote on only funds the government through mid-November. I believe November 21st.
That's
yes.
correct.
So that would not alleviate the concerns that folks all across this country have, that the people in your state have. What do you think should happen?
Well, first of all, nobody wants to shut down, least of all me. But what we have to do is we have to somehow get the attention of the American people about what's happening this administration. Now, for the tax credits, the Affordable Care tax credits, we knew that they're about to expire at the end of this year. When we kept the government open in March, we said, well, we're going to figure out what we're going to do going forward. How do we extend it? How do we create an atmosphere where people can just buy a damn insurance policy? What this is essentially about is people's ability to buy themselves an insurance policy. It's not welfare. It's not a paycheck. People want to be able to afford insurance so they can go to the doctor and get their health care. They've done none of that. Now, hopefully we have their attention. What we're asking them to do is to not let folks fall off this cliff where millions of Americans, regardless of how you get your insurance, mind you, insurance rates are going up. Well, just ask your best friend, Marjorie Taylor Greene. She's going to tell you what's happening in her own family, right? Double. So we want to extend that so folks don't fall off the cliff, number one, and let Leader Thune be a real leader and put together a bipartisan working group that comes up with a framework with benchmarks and things that we can work on that's going to make our health care more affordable and accessible for everyone, because this is an all of us problem and it is a now problem. And Republicans could fix that now. Well, if Donald Trump let them. Mike Johnson, he's never coming back. But Thune needs to stand up for the United States Senate. We are the backstop. History will judge him on this, and people will be hurt. So we want them to come to the table. I don't think it's unreasonable. They haven't been trustworthy partners before, and put something down that the American people can hopefully hold them accountable to.
So set against the backdrop of all that, Payne, I want to loop back to where we started. You said you had one Republican on the line. I'm not sure if I didn't understand the joke. Is there a Republican you think is going to join you in voting for the resolution on Trump?
No, one Republican gets to object. It only takes one to object.
Now I understand the math.
Send to the firing squad.
So then my question is, if not a single one of them joins you, do you then say, you are responsible. You
they
have
have
signed
to object.
off.
So what happens? I'll explain when people talk about this unanimous consent. Tonight, we're kind of running it through the Senate. Someone's going to say whether they object or not. 99 other senators, anybody can object to it. They say they're going to object. We go to the floor tomorrow, and I'll present my resolution condemning the president for ripping off the American taxpayer for $230 million. Check payable. He's signing off on a check from himself to himself out of the American taxpayer's bank account. So if nobody objects, then great, the resolution will be passed. If someone objects, that means they have to come to the floor, and you can watch them tomorrow on C-SPAN, and you'll see what their argument is, or if they'll just object and run away. Sometimes they just object and run away because they don't want to say anything. I know you've seen that too, but we'll see what happens tomorrow.
Over the weekend, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said he, too, felt the pain from China refusing to buy American soybeans because he himself is a soybean farmer. Watch this.
Martha, in case you don't know it, I'm actually a soybean farmer, so I have felt this pain too. And there are a couple of things happening here. One, the Chinese have substantially dropped their purchases to almost zero, so they unfortunately have been using American farmers who are amongst President Trump's biggest supporters. I think he had more than 90% support.
For clarification, Secretary Bessent himself is not a farmer. What he actually means is he collects rent on farmland that he owns in North Dakota. I want to welcome John Bartman. He is a corn and soybean farmer for real from Illinois. John, thank you for staying up late and joining me tonight. I want to start with what the Treasury Secretary said. What did you make of that?
Well, Steph, it's very obvious that we've got another Republican who's all hat, no cattle. And unfortunately, they think that they can buy their calluses, but, you have to earn them. And the American people know that, and they can see through it. China bought more than half of the U.S.-grown soybeans in 2023 and 2024. Tell us what this has been like. Their boycott, how has it affected your day-to-day business? Well, Steph, one thing I really appreciate your show is that you understand markets. And right now, we're sitting on 1 billion bushels that don't have a home. That's about 25% of our market right now. And what I'm really concerned about is 2026. And if we don't get these bushels sold, we're really looking at economic disaster in 2026. You are not a cattle rancher, but the president proposed, in this same vein, now buying beef from Argentina to bring beef prices down here. What do you think of that? Well, it's his Argentina first agenda. That's what he's trying to do, unfortunately. I mean, we're giving $40 billion to Argentina, and the minute that they lifted their export tax, China came in and bought roughly $800 million worth of beans from them. That's $800 million that should be going back to rural America so that farmers can pay off their operating loans. And more importantly, put some American factory workers back to work right now. Deere is laying off people, Case IH is laying off people, and we really need to step up to the plate and support Americans here. And I feel bad for the beef industry, because the beef industry, they buy about 6 billion bushels of corn from us every year. And that's worth $25 billion of economic activity that goes back to grain farmers like me. And those poor cow-calf producers are finally getting ahead after being in debt too. And Stephanie, the American people need to realize that only 16 cents of every dollar goes back to me, the farmer and the rancher. And it's the packers who are making the money right now. And when I feel so bad for our seniors sitting at home saying, why are these farmers asking for a bailout? We're not asking for a bailout. Donald Trump did this to us. And unfortunately, we are hurting right now. We are the collateral damage to what's going on. And he had 8 years to plan this. Why did he put us in the crosshairs of this collateral damage? He doesn't have a plan. And unfortunately, what we really need the secretary to do right now is to implement the 45Z Sustainable Aviation and Biofuel Tax Credit. That's money that goes directly to me, the farmer. That would be worth about $1 a bushel to me. And more importantly, we get to save the environment because I farm sustainably, and we're going to create a new industry. And it's going to be good for rural America, and it's going to be great for the environment. And we need to be supporting this type of legislation. And it's sitting right there on his desk. He can implement that tomorrow if he really cared. But they don't. Because why? Because that was Joe Biden's plan, and they don't want anything to do that Joe Biden did. And that's the unfortunate reality.